Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, you can send questions and comments along the live Facebook stream. So hello and good evening to Facebook, as well as YouTube. Hello and good evening, Facebook. I already said Facebook. YouTube again. So there we go. You know me. My name is John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And we have the whole crew tonight. So this is exciting. Getting ready to wind down into the holidays. So without further ado, let's go right to Robert Johnson for his introduction. Hello, Robert.
Hey everybody, Robert Johnson here, past master Waukegan Lodge, sitting secretary at Space Novum 1183 and host of the Whence Came You Masonic podcast. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Robert. All right, Jason Richards, who are you?
I am a past master Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, and member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C.
I don't believe you.
That's your prerogative.
All right, next up.
And why'd you ask?
I got distracted by your sweater. Sorry. Juan Sepulveda, good evening and hello.
Magnificent.
Good evening, brothers. Juan Sepulveda here from Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in sunny and chilly 55-degree Kissimmee, Florida. And the brother behind AppliedFreemasonry.com. Thank you, brothers.
Excellent. And last but not least, Mike the intern. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. I am the senior warden-elect at Lakeshore Lodge number 307 in Madison, Ohio, and their lodge education officer.
Excellent. All right. So we had, a little break between early November and Thanksgiving, so I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. But now we're going to dive right in through December into the holidays. Just a little heads up. We looked at the schedule, and sure enough, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve all fall on TMR nights. So it's in the best interest of our marriage and our relationships with our family that we probably look ahead and start planning around those holidays. So heads up.
Oh, come on. You know they won't do anything about it.
It's always a great idea to put masonry ahead of family,
especially right? During this pandemic.
Yes, exactly. Oh, good times. So we were thinking, before we get into tonight's topic, we were thinking, how can we bring up this esprit de corps of this fraternity with all the craziness that's been going on with 2020 and COVID? How can we help get a spirit of togetherness to everyone who helps participate in, contributes to TMR through Patreon and other channels, and really just is part of the active engagement in the community that listens and is in part of the sixth beetle, the sixth night of TMR, which is all of you. How can we instill this community in some sort of virtual way? And I personally, full disclosure, have never, ever been part of a Secret Santa, and I've always wanted to do one. And I said, hey, what if we tried something out like that for everyone? So we said, well, how are we going to run it? How are we going to manage it? What's the plan there? But Jason has done something like this before. Jason, you want to talk a little bit about your Secret Santa experience?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So my best friends from college and I get together once a year. It's all of the roommates from our apartment. We get together once a year over Christmas and just have a Christmas meal together. This is the first time in 17 years that we're not able to get together in person. But as part of that meal, we always do a Secret Santa, and we're still doing that to this day. And a couple of years ago, when we were arranging the Secret Santa, we usually just draw names out of a hat and do it over email because everybody's across the country or at least across the state. And one of my roommates or former roommates pulled up this this website called Elfster, ELFSTER.com. And it's literally a computerized Secret Santa gift exchange platform.
So it does all the work, huh?
It does, yeah, it does most of the work. You still have to go out and procure the gift and send it, or have it sent yourself. But it does the gift exchange. It has a wish list function. It you can choose restrictions. So all 5 of the hosts are taking part in this gift exchange. I've restricted it so none of the hosts will get matched up together as Secret Santas. So it's just it's going to be really, really cool, and it's a way for us to enter into a spirit of brotherly and sisterly giving. It's open to anybody, regardless of whether you're a Mason or not. The only requirements are you got to be a fan of TMR, because we're the ones running it, and you have to live in the United States or have a U.S. address, and that's really for ease of shipping, because we're trying to keep everything to under $30, including shipping. So if you sign up for this, what we're asking you to do is commit to make somebody's holiday a little bit brighter by sending a gift to the person you get matched up with, who will most likely be a complete stranger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really exciting, because we want to spread this around, and because we're Masons and we love community and we love the fraternal brotherly love, and what better way to do this than to be matched up with potentially a stranger you've never met, which is again one of the value propositions of Freemasonry. Maybe a fellow listener, maybe someone else you met on a Facebook group, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're gonna get assigned a random person, and you can go in, log in, kind of put your wish list in there. You can say I'm interested in these books, and it'll kind of help you guide through things on Amazon that you might like. So whenever you do get matched by a Secret Santa, they kind of know what you like. And the easiest way to hop on a note, you can do this right now. Head on over to tinyurl.com/TMRXmas, all caps matter. tinyurl.com/TMRXMAS. And that way it'll automatically redirect to the Elfster page. You can go in, sign up, and we'd love to join and share the spirit of the holidays with you. Cool part is that all 5 of us are in there as well. So you could potentially be randomly assigned to one of us. We don't know. It's all magic. It's all in the numbers. But wait, there's more. So Jason, tell our guests what else they could win.
So first and foremost, if you want to sign up, you got to sign up by a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Friday, December 11th is the last date to sign up, because we're drawing names on December 12th. And then it's going to start and will go until December 30th. So, however, there's more. So for those of you who support us on Patreon, especially the folks at the night level on Patreon, if you're participating in this, we're putting you in to an entirely different contest where, as of December 12th, any folks who support us at the night level on Patreon will get entered into a drawing to get one of 5 holiday care packages from one of us. So each of us are putting together our own curated holiday package, and we will send it out hopefully in time for Christmas to 5 folks who support us at the night level as of December 12th. So that's just another way that we can give back to the folks who have been supporting the show all year. So that's exciting.
You don't need to be a Patreon subscriber or supporter to just join in the fun on Elfster, right? Because it's going to be completely random, all on your honor. That's the other takeaway, right? Don't be a jerk. Make sure that if you get matched to somebody, you actually play nice, play by the rules, and give them something special. Give as well as receive. But there could be a possibility you could give and not receive, but that's life, right? It's all about the giving. So hop on over to tinyurl.com/capital TMRXMAS by December 11th to sign up. The cutoff date is Saturday the 12th at 0000, and we'll start. You'll automatically be assigned someone and spread the love. We would love to hear about some of the cool things that you guys have given each other. Open for everybody. I think it'll just be a lot of fun, something fun to try. So I'm excited. It's really cool. I get to be part of a Secret Santa. I get to be almost as cool as Jason Sweater. Almost. So, yeah.
We should all aspire to be almost awesome holiday sweater.
Excellent. Okay, so any other thoughts on that? I'm really excited about the TMR Secret Santa. So
sign up, participate. It'll be a ton of fun, and we're looking forward to seeing what everybody gets.
Yes, indeed. I want to see pictures. Pixar didn't happen. Okay, let's get into this week's topic.
And at some point, I will get my wife to Photoshop Santa hats onto a new picture of the TMR host, so I don't have to blank out Nick Johnson's face and put Mike the intern over top of it.
Look at this hack job that just happened here. Poor Mike.
It's the PowerPoint special.
It is glorious.
You get what you pay for.
Right.
You know what? Let's go change the album art on everything. Let's go. It's official. All right.
Hey, we should talk about tonight's topic.
We should talk about tonight's topic because it's a good one. It's one that I'm pretty passionate about. We were chatting a lot about it in the green room getting ready for the show. So tonight's topic is really focusing on the volunteer organization that is Freemasonry. And the first thing that comes to mind, we've talked a lot about lodge leadership. We've talked a lot over the years about, what are your duties as specific officers? How do you perform those duties? But if you've ever been a worshipful master, you know very quickly, one, your plans will never come out the way you want them to. They just won't. And two, part of that is because you're dealing with humans, right? You're dealing with human beings with emotions and wants and needs and desires that may or may not match up with your own. And leadership is hard. We talk a lot about it in its business time, adapting a corporate path for Freemasonry. We talk a lot about it just in lodge leadership training. And so tonight we wanted to focus on how can we, as a volunteer organization, motivate each and every one of the members so that we get the best out of them and we get the best for the fraternity as a whole. We have a couple tips, techniques, and tactics that we want to try, but we're going to open this up to a lot of really good discussion on what that looks like. And so I really want to kind of kick things off, and then I'll open it up to the rest of you because one thing I've been really inspired by is there's an author, Daniel Pink. He's written a couple of different leadership books, and one of them is about motivation, what drives us. And one of the techniques that he mentions in his book is the tactic of autonomy. And so what he's really trying to get at is how can you as a leader let people figure it out themselves? How do you give people autonomy in order to execute? So what would that look like? What would that be like? Well, I'll tell you what it wouldn't look like. It would not look like the term that we may have heard before, micromanagement, right? Do this way, the way I tell you, and I want it this way. I want it done by this deadline. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants that. You don't want that from your wife. You don't want that from your spouse. You don't want that from, your boss. It's not effective. It's demoralizing. And good luck if you get it done. It's going to be poor quality, and probably people would in a volunteer organization would say, I've got enough going on. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go do something else with my time instead of being micromanaged. So the opposite of that is also true. That if you give people the freedom to figure things out, to use their innate skills and abilities, then you may be surprised by the solutions they come up with. So what would that look like? We were kind of talking in the green room. I would say, hey, Robert, have you thought about being my education officer this year coming up? Maybe thought about it. Cool. Instead of saying, well, here's the Grand Lodge list of educational resources. I want you to have a planned 5-minute talk every meeting at 7:05, and it has to be this long. It can't be any longer because we don't want these people to fall asleep. And really, can you keep it within a page because we don't want it just going on and on. And I want you to turn in the paperwork afterwards so we can keep with the lodge minutes. Once you start going to that level of detail, you've already lost. Robert, you've already lost pretty much the lodge. But if you say, hey, Robert, I know you've expressed interest in being, like our education officer. I really believe you're going to do a great job. I want to see what you can come up with. So can you show me something cool at the next meeting? Because I want to be surprised. I want to know what it is. I want to know something creative that maybe I'm not even thinking of to wow the brothers. So good luck.
So the flip side of that, well, the other side of that same coin is of course, don't lose sight of this idea of empowerment too. Like it comes with the autonomy. You're giving them the ability.
Bingo.
But you want to have this attitude of empowerment genuinely, right? Because you're brothers. We're not faking this, right? Although, there are case studies that talk about, fake empathy until you become empathetic. But you want to give somebody the power. You want to empower them to do the work and give them the resources they need to do it. And this is very difficult when we're talking about, your example of education. With education, it can be very difficult to empower somebody, especially monetarily, because generally speaking, there isn't a whole lot of money allocated to education. But with anything in the lodge, there is an entire amount of jobs and things that you can ask somebody about. I think I was just listening to, maybe it was a book or a podcast, maybe it was an article. I can't exactly remember, but basically it just said, hey, if Joe Smith is the best painter in the world and he's the painter who comes to lodge and you need some work done around here, you go to Joe and you say, Joe, if I give you the means and the money to do this, you do a great job already out in the real world. Can we leverage that talent and just give you autonomy to take care of this for us? It just works.
Yeah, and we had a little bit of back and forth too, is about, well, what is autonomy? Because you're still directing. You still say, I want you to be my education officer. I want you to help paint the lodge. But that is more of setting the what, not the how. Big difference.
Not the
right?
how.
That as leader, you still have to set direction. You have to set the vector. However, you do not have to tell them how and all the gory details that goes with that.
Think about it in the corporate world today. Oh yeah, go John. Go ahead, Juan.
Oh my God, you call me John. It's stuck.
It's stuck.
I did for a second, psychologically.
You took it back. I respect that. In line with this, and not that I have any experience with being an artist and being in lodges that could use paintings, one thing for the brothers to remember, if you're in a leadership position and you have someone who has a musical talent, for example, don't put all these barriers and obstacles and all these impediments for that brother to exercise whatever talent or skill he wants to put to the service of the craft. One thing I've seen, and I'll use the music example so that it doesn't sound as obvious that I'm talking about me trying to paint for lodges. I've seen examples where we have brothers who are talented, who can actually play instruments, and we have them offering these to be part of the ritual or be part of the day, the regular lodge meetings. And they are presented with so many obstacles. Oh no, but we have a musician. And, yeah, but the musician is not showing up. Yes, but what kind of music are you going to play? And, we've had problems with music here before. Or another thing, whenever you have these individuals doing something valuable, then don't be, show gratitude for it. We've had a scenario where we had a brother adding music to some of the ritual, and there were some brothers complaining that it sounded like that some of the songs sounded like concentration camp music. Like that was the feedback. It's actually classical music composed with a Masonic theme by a Mason, so it's appropriate for this, but
take it up with
it was shut down. It was shut down. This brother was prohibited from playing this song.
That's awful.
That was uplifting for the ceremony. But the point is not just not micromanaging, is also not putting so many obstacles that you will discourage the people that are willingly offering their time and their talents for the service of the craft. Give them some room to breathe. Tell them, okay, you got it. Do you need some time? Do you need some space? What's the budget, if any? And get out of their way.
Think about that.
And
I mean,
all of this.
I was just going to say, it's like when you go and you order, right? Chef's choice.
I would like to talk.
He's not going to give you anything garbage.
I would like to talk.
You got it. Go.
I'm not dead yet.
So all of this, I'm not dead yet. I want to go for a walk. All of this is so important because it breeds personal responsibility, personal ownership, and emotional investment. So you want to talk about creating an emotional tie to between a person and the fraternity and the organization. One of the best ways to do that is to enable someone to create a deep personal emotional investment, and you do that by giving people ownership over the organization. That's why you have employee owned companies and things of that nature. When you have a personal ownership stake in what you're doing, it creates an emotional bond that that really cements that person to that organization. So you want to talk about a way to stop attrition and encourage retention. Personal ownership for those folks who are raring to go and really interested in it is going to be a great glue that can cement good men to the fraternity.
I think that brings up a really good point too. The next thing that Dan Pink mentions, he actually mentions three things. We talked about autonomy. There's another one called mastery, but you're jumping right to purpose. Like ownership gives people purpose. It gives people a reason to get up in the morning. It gives them a sense of guidance and a North Star, a sense of direction. And I mean, I know Juan and I could nerd out all day on kind of Ikigai and the purpose of why we get up in the morning. So how does it translate to Freemasonry? Running a lodge, right? One, some of the best advice I've heard for new members is as soon as a brother comes in the door, they become a Master Mason, they're full of, vinegar and they're ready to work, then the next step is, now what? I've become a Master Mason, now what? The best advice I've heard, give them a job. Give them something to do. Find out what they're best at. If they are an artist or if they are a musician, that's pretty easy. But
that doesn't mean put them right into line.
No, that's right. No. Hashtag no progressive lines. But
also if you give them a job, let them do it too.
Back to not micromanaging. Yes.
Yeah. But the other side to it is also don't, like if you're making them your lodge education officer, or even, as Juan was mentioning, sort of with the musician side of things, just because the guy is the musician or just because the guy is the lodge education officer, both of those guys don't actually have to be the one doing their piece that night. The lodge education officer doesn't have to be the guy who's getting up there and giving the education.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And even with the musician, the idea is that you make the lodge musician the guy that knows it, but honestly, he could find someone else to be, to either apprentice to himself, as it were, as well. But the idea is to get someone, to get others involved as well, or expand the music side of the lodge. Just because you have one doesn't mean you're done. You know, I mean, if all you got's the organ or piano in there, sure, but you could bring in more instruments and actually make it a group thing. So I mean, it's again, make sure that whoever you're giving a job to, don't make it that it's all on top of their shoulders to provide all of the work.
No, that's
For
a
the
great
love
point.
of God, can we not give new Masons a job by throwing them into line?
Hey, you know what? You'd be great
What
for
else?
senior warden.
Yeah.
What else would you have them do?
I would.
Or who else
I
would you have do
them,
it?
I would have them do what they're interested in. If lodge leadership and service is what they're interested in, then yeah, they might be a great candidate for the bottom of the officer line. If they're interested in finance or budget, maybe they could be an apprentice to the secretary or the treasurer, or maybe they could help run some of the volunteer activities, like help the stewards with setting out the meals and things like that. There's so many ways that you can get involved to the betterment of your lodge and the community that makes up your lodge. You can, if you are really really interested in woodworking or things of that nature, there's a way to blend your hobbies into masonry.
Yeah, I mean, look at Alex Powers, right? We've had him on a couple times. He runs the Historical Like podcast. Like, dude loves history and he loves masonry. So, like, why don't you put chocolate and peanut butter together and make the best darn Reese's cup of being the lodge historian, and then work with your grand line. That's a perfect example of taking that passion, blending it with the craft, and like kicking butt, taking names. So, yep. It truly goes back to the purpose. Juan, you want to add anything? I know you're really into kind of finding your special purpose, and not in like the Steve Martin jerk way, but in a different way.
Well, people are going to thrive in the areas in which they have some sort of interest. Jason's on point when it comes to that. Try to gauge what it is that these new individuals are interested in doing. The problem is that they don't even know what's available. And if people default to, oh yeah, well, you could jump in the line, rock your body in line. It's like, no, there are other things you can offer. What can you do? And we've talked about this before. What are your talents? What are your hobbies? What are your inclinations? And if you have access to that, then oh, how can that be put to the service of the lodge or to the service of the district? You may have someone who is a public speaker, and this is a low-hanging fruit for me to talk about, because I've seen examples in which we've had great public speakers in the district, and they are not invited to speak, or they're not encouraged to speak. And if you have someone who is a natural public speaker, who has the presentation skills, who has the depth of knowledge in the different topics, this is what we need. This is so important for us to inject excitement into the meetings. Why not invite this brother to another one? So ask, know what it is that makes that brother tick. And we've talked about that. What is it that makes you excited? Is there room for that in our lodge? More times than, more often than not, yes, there is room for those different things. So instead of instantly offering, oh, we need someone in the kitchen. Well, yeah, you need someone in the kitchen, but it doesn't have to be this new brother who actually is a master project planner.
Though I will say, my mother lodge, we had a brother who we found out either was currently or had recently been the White House chef. So we immediately assigned him to steward, had the best darn lodge meals made in-house. It was fantastic. I tell you what, that dude could just dig through the old spice rack. The spice racks that had like the quarter-inch layer of dust on top of them, like these old ones that you can tell they haven't been replaced. Dude could just sprinkle a spice on some like old cheap pork chops. Fantastic. It was beautiful. So you don't need to be a world class chef, but you do need to have a purpose. So that's awesome. But that leads into the next one, the last one of Daniel Pink's, which is mastery. So purpose gets you there. It gets you to the front door, but mastery keeps you coming back. And so the analogy Dan Pink talks about is why do people play instruments, right, at home? Right, they're not going to be the next Bon Jovi. They're not going to be the next rock star. So why would they take the time out of their day that already is limited to learn to play an instrument? Well,
because you get girls.
Yes, you get chicks, right?
That's why I started playing guitar. That's why I still play guitar.
Yeah. How's it working out for you?
I mean, I'm married and I got 4 kids. They're great.
It worked out once. So
maybe worked out 4 times.
But we feel more motivated once we start seeing progress. Once we start practicing something, getting a little bit better, being able to show that off. That's literally why we have people who are really good at ritual in Lodge, right? That we have people who focus on getting better and practicing the ritual to do even better. So they have the purpose to it's an interest of theirs. Now they want to actually take that a step further and master that. But don't think just ritual when you're talking about giving people jobs to be masters at, mastering their craft. It could be a lot of those other things we have previously talked about.
Now, one other thing I was thinking along the same lines with the, giving a person a job and, encouraging them through this, and even, like giving them the mastery, and you talk about the mastering the ritual and so forth. But one thing that I see a lot of lodges do, which is something we need to pull away from too, though, is once you've got a guy that masters it and is really good at it, there's no encouragement to get anybody else to master it. It's more, okay, well, he can do it, so we're relying on him. And we're going to use him and use him and use him and burn him out to the point where he's going, somebody else has to learn this because I don't want to do it anymore, and because he feels abused by that point.
I would bring up this kind of idea also is, one, how much of mastery is ego driven, and two, to Mike's point, sometimes it's not exactly burnout. Sometimes you're feeding an ego to the point where, like, you've essentially created a monster. Somebody who shows up to every degree and expects to do this thing. And then it leads to them at an old age thinking they still are the best at something when there's 10 other young guys on the circuit who can do it and are sitting on the sidelines watching a candidate get the most garbage lecture they've ever heard. I mean, it goes both ways, so we have to be careful.
Yeah. That's an excellent point. It just what you said kind of was really insightful about, how much of mastery is ego driven? That really gave me pause for a second. It really reminded me of this like mind blowing quote that really like hurt my head for a couple weeks when I heard it, which was, so hopefully you're sitting down and not operating heavy machinery right now, which was, the strive for altruism is selfish. Right? That the fact that you want to be altruistic means you are wanting something in return for it, right? It shouldn't be a desire of yours to be altruistic, because then you're trying to get something out of that. And so the same could also be true for everything we just said about, if you're the best ritualist in Lodge, now what have you become, right? You've become the best ritualist in Lodge, and that can be, what you say, your greatest strength could also be your biggest weakness. And so, as Hammy said about bringing in other people who are great at music, we want to make sure we keep balance as well.
Yeah, that key word, balance, right? Scottish Rite Brothers know what's up, so keep it in mind.
All right, so those are the big three that Dan Pink talks about in his book, Motivation: What Drives Us. So now we open it up to the floor to really talk about what are some other best practices we've seen in our Masonic careers, Masonic journeys, that can help motivate the brothers, whether that be from a leadership position down. If you're a worshipful master, what have you found as some best practices to inspire and motivate others? Or I believe that you can be a leader anywhere you are in the organization. Even as the youngest entered apprentice in the lodge, you still can be a leader from where you are. So what best practices have you seen to help rise people up? While you guys are thinking of that, I'm just going to do another in video plug for the Christmas Secret Santa exchange for all of you listeners on TMR. tinyurl.com/TMRXmas. I really want to see you guys hop on over there.
So one of the things that I'm thinking about, and it might not be exactly the idea of a best practice, and maybe maybe there is a best practice that's tied somehow to something, right? It's no secret. A lot of us are thinking about driving factors economically in regards to any particular situation. So as we were talking about this, and the author that you have been citing tonight, John, in some of his work, he talked and he kind of laid the foundation for some of this, these three ideas, the autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And really when we see the best results is from the autonomy, the driven purpose, and the mastery. The foundation level is a comfort. He talks about this monetary comfort. And so something I'm thinking about, just because my lodge secretary, Carl, many years ago told me, don't worry about setting the petition fee so high, because if they can't pay it, they're not ready to be a part of the lodge. And I always thought, that's really interesting, and it sounds kind of classist. It sounds elitist. But after listening to your author, what he says is that people who are paid enough, not worrying about money, have the time and are willing to dedicate time to the mastery of other things. So now it got me thinking. I'm thinking, wow, are the people who are most active in lodge, if you were to take a chart, would the 0 point be monetary comfort in life and activity in lodge? Like, is there a 0 point that you can hit there? And it makes me wonder, like, what that is for somebody, because obviously we know we have members who can't make meetings because they're working. We have, members who can't make meetings because of childcare issues or anything else. And all these things cost money, and it starts to make sense to me. And I'm wondering, am I becoming this weird elitist in my head now that I've heard this author and then I'm connecting it to this thing that my secretary said a long time ago that suddenly all of a sudden almost makes sense to me? Can you only achieve the best out of people from people who are comfortable? Like, are they... But then we have so many examples of guys out there who like slave for lodges and don't have stable jobs. And
right.
So Robert,
I wonder,
I really think what you're getting into is Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, it could be.
Yes, we're all in sync. The idea that in order to reach the top of the pyramid, which is really that esoteric, emotional, spiritual fulfillment, you have to first take care of the bottom rungs of the pyramid, the first of which is that food, water, and shelter. And so I dare say that yes, there is a point financially where enough of someone's basest needs are met, so that they've got the food, water, and shelter. They've got the protection and security. Once those are met, then they can go into companionship. spiritual growth and things of that nature. So absolutely, there's got to be some intrinsic, individualistic place where you have enough from an economic standpoint to really be able to devote your time and attention toward the fraternal aspect of Masonry and the spiritual aspect too.
Yeah, I wanted to elaborate on Maslow's hierarchy of needs there, because it is so, I think it's very possible that there is a correlation in there. It's definitely worth exploring further. But when you talk about physiological needs and you have that need to provide for the family, like that is that's the base. And if that is not satisfied, if that is not taken care of, then everything else is done at the expense of that. Like, you could have someone who is just devoting a ton of time to lodge, and I've seen this happen, and where they do it at the expense of their stability in their marriage, or they're doing it at the expense of spending time with the kids, or they're doing it at the expense of missing out on opportunities that are going to make their career or their business that much more successful. So I do see what RJ is saying. I've seen it quite often, that I'm inclined to say, yes, there is a correlation. Of course, we respect data, and it will be important for us to see more than just a anecdotal approach to it. But I just wanted to highlight that after physiological needs, then you have safety, and that includes shelter, stability, and then it goes to social. So how much more inclined would we be to be part of a fraternal organization when we've already satisfied our necessities in the physiological and the safety rungs, and now we can devote time to the harmony of fellowship?
So this is wild, because I was like, I know that I have heard of like a Masonic hierarchy of needs, because in June of 2019, I'm digging through the archives. We talked about it, and either right at the end of the show or after the show, I came up with this chart, and it's related. It's similar. We could probably adapt it, but I found it where at the bottom is like what's like the base thing you need before you can move up. And this is not fully fleshed out. It's not been tested. Blah 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 blah. Your mileage may vary. At the very bottom layer, what you got there, Robert? Let me see here. You drew some of that too.
Is that from Camp Masonry?
Oh, wait, you're muted. While he's thinking about that, I'll switch back. Care for your fellow brother, like making sure that your work life, your home life, and all that is established first. That should be your first lowest rung of the ladder. Like, you should not progress up until you have those other things in place. So let's bring it back to the topic tonight. If you are a leader of a lodge and you're trying to get the best out of brothers, the very first thing you should do is care for that brother. Make sure that their needs are met. Sometimes their financial needs are met. Their spiritual needs are met. Their family life needs are met. First, right? We always said family first, then masonry, which is why it's at the lowest point of this level. Then you get into making sure that, well, do you know your ritual before you start going down like, esoteric rabbit holes? Like, you got to know the ritual, where it comes from, right? This is no different than like biblical exegesis, where you need to know the text in order for you to understand some of the allegorical or symbolic things behind it, right? So then once you know the ritual, once you know the words to why we have certain working tools, then you can dive into the symbolism of what does that symbol mean, and start exploring, the symbol outside of the ritual. And then you can get into, well, what does that mean to me? How does this apply in a modern context? Why should I care about the square, 300 years later? Which gets into, well, the philosophy underneath of that, right? Symbolism and philosophy are different. And then you can really start going down that rabbit hole. So that's just something I dug up out of the archives, and I think it's really relevant to the conversation.
So what I was trying to show was last year at Camp Masonry, I cannot for the life of me, I didn't write down who was doing this particular presentation. I have the word Kennedy here. Maybe that's the name of the person who was doing the presentation, but he wrote down, he showed Maslow, but he gave Masonry just 3 tiers with a base level of security, a mid-level of pride, and a top level of investment. So I thought that was kind of interesting because that's really what we've outlined already, the idea of being secure, having purpose or pride, and then having a feeling, as Jason mentioned, personal investment. And I've seen that even in the most unesoteric of brothers, guys who become building maintenance guys. You know what I mean? They just love the lodge so much. They take pride in the building or whatever it is they're working on.
So
interesting.
In comparison, then, I guess the one I showed may have been more for that track of Masonry, which deals with the education track and how do you grow in that, and you shouldn't skip steps, right? That's the big takeaway there.
Yeah, and
yours,
what
John,
you said.
As I say, John, yours is more on the individual's hierarchy of needs, where the one from Camp Masonry was a lodge hierarchy of needs.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's the difference, because I remember being there for that one, and that's really what it was. It was about, theirs was about the lodge itself. What do you need for the lodge to succeed? And it's that security and the all the way up to the pride piece. But go ahead, RJ. I can tell you.
I was gonna say literalisms throughout, right? Like examples for security in the lodge were a safe parking lot, so super literal stuff.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly what they were talking about there, because they wanted brothers to feel secure. I mean, especially knowing some of the stuff like what happened a few years ago in Minneapolis. That just brings it out. So.
All right, so now we come around to the new segment, the final question. And the final question tonight for all the hosts is, what is the best example that you've seen in Lodge for how to motivate brothers to do something, whether it be a barbecue, whether it be great ritual work, whether it be this inspiring speaker that they brought in? Just giving you some examples of things to fire your neurons. What are some great examples you've seen over the years that has motivated people to show up, to be involved, to be engaged, and to grow in Masonry? Okay. All right, let's start with one then.
The number one example that comes to mind was TMR Con 300 when we went to Virginia. Because this was from an organizing point of view. Of course, we had what the 5 of us were putting together as project organizers, but then we have an additional layer or additional arms of volunteers. We had brothers who had been following the Masonic Roundtable for many years, who on a moment's notice said, count me in. I'll be there and I'm going to help out. And people we've never met in person, brothers who we've never seen in the flesh, were coming up and standing up and helping us through and through. We had a weekend, an incredibly amazing event, and we had all these brothers that we weren't paying them, but they were so motivated. This event was theirs. So here comes the component, that sense of belonging. This event was theirs. Their signature is forever emblazoned in the patent that we commissioned for that event. The photos of them sitting at the table, checking people in to the event will forever live in our memories. And we're forever grateful for that. But I think that was a great example where the gratitude, the acknowledgement that we offer them, that contact that we had with them. Like, these brothers like we became tight in that weekend, and that was way more valuable than if we had said, posted on Craigslist, we need some we need some workers to check tickets and help with the lunch and all that kind of stuff. So finding, if there's one piece of advice, is that if you have missions or projects that you want to accomplish within your lodge, make sure that you're clear on what those are, and be clear on what is that motivates the people that are volunteering. These are people that have complexities in their lives. They have jobs, wives, families, all kinds of responsibilities, and they're choosing to spend their time with you to fulfill your vision. The least you can do is find out, why is this important to you, and how can we make you feel fulfilled in the process? And I guarantee you that you'll get a great response and a great result as conclusion. So for all of you watching, thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to all the gentlemen who are helping me in this very topic with the Gentleman's Brotherhood. I have an awesome team of men who help me with research, with editing, with writing, with scheduling, everything to make sure that we are reaching men who want to become better in life. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to see what we are doing in the Gentleman's Brotherhood, head over to thegentleman'sbrotherhood.com and become a part of it. Thank you, Earth.
All right, thank you. Hammy, give me a great example of motivation in a lodge context.
Well, you get out of Freemasonry what you put into it. No, no, I'm just kidding there. To be honest, it's that whole idea that you speak to a brother about, what interests him in the lodge and put him to work in that general direction. That has worked. I mean, that's what's worked for me. I was most interested in education. I'll admit my first lodge wasn't they were very enthusiastic about putting me into the position of LEO, but not as enthused about putting that into practice. But then once I, found another lodge and then another, it's, I've been able to continue and actually, pass that along and actually turned it into a pretty great thing where I'm providing lodge education now, not only for my lodge, but other lodges. And that's just been a piece for me. And that's, yes, that's ego driven. I will totally say that, because I enjoy it, and, I get some accolades out of that as well, but, that was just one approach. Somebody actually listened to what I had to say and allowed me to run with it. And once I got that, it worked for me, and I've seen it work for others. Talk to, the minute, people have seen how I've done as lodge education officer, we've had guys in, other lodges or my own lodge asking, can I do a presentation next time? Or I have this idea, can you help me, put it together? And then they do it, so it's just one, the more you can show too, is also quite motivating.
All right. Excellent. Let's head over to Robert. Give me some great motivation. No pressure.
Jeez, I don't know if I have any great motivation.
Tough love? Maybe some tough love?
I guess there's tough love. I think the first lesson I learned was not showing up at my stated meeting meant I was the chair of the ladies' dinner with the next stated meeting. They told me that. Huh. They said that's what happens when you're not here. I said, oh, okay. So I was the chair of the ladies' dinner, and the only people who showed up was my wife. So it was awesome. I've seen some interesting things, right? Like, Kansas Lodge of Research. I shared their video today, in fact, on Facebook. If you submit a paper, you might get a little bit off of your dues. So there's like rewards that way, right? There's a monetary motivation. You save money on your dues. Yeah, a tiered due structure or something. I have to be real honest, John. I don't my mother lodge never really had that sort of positive motivation. It was learn this, and if I don't, here's why. Here's what happens.
Right, and that's. I didn't want to cut you off, but I think
Yeah.
the fact that it wasn't like externalized, like here is you must do this. There is another hidden psychological reason why you wanted to excel in your lodge, and I think that's
Yeah.
really what we're trying to find.
Yeah, and so I'll tell you is it was basically it came down to RJ, you don't know any lectures. When are you going to learn some lectures? When are you going to learn some lectures? When are you going to learn some lectures? And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to learn the longest one in the book for you then. And so I did that. And it was out of spite, really, if I'm being totally honest.
Spite is motivation. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't come from a great place, but it certainly worked. And then in my current lodge, that's true. Yeah, my mom likes to pack those bags. And so, like in my current lodge, it was a very carefully curated lodge. So pretty much everybody knows the bags that they bring to the table, and those are your jobs in real life, and those are your jobs here. So it's a difficult question for me to answer. I'll just say that.
Moving on to a better host. No, but I mean it's an interesting and difficult subject. It really is, and I appreciate the candor about trying to figure out what really motivates people. What motivates Jason to wear that sweater?
Being the best looking host on TMR.
He's a cutie patootie in that sweater.
I am, especially with my emo locks. So when it comes to your final question, John, I think one of the things that I've seen, especially at my mother lodge, Acacia, has been going to the bar after lodge. The fellowship after lodge is a very powerful motivator for folks, and it really breeds that sense of fraternal camaraderie. And I know folks who come to lodge just so that they can go to the pub afterward and have really awesome, fantastic conversations. And so that was a big one that immediately came to mind for me. There was a point during my year in the East, after we had Brother Dave Bacon come down from Ohio and speak. We closed the lodge, I think, at like 9, and we were at the pub until almost midnight, just talking about Dave's conversation. And that is the first and only time I have ever seen a group of like 20 brothers from lodge close down the pub after lodge, talking about what happened in lodge. And like that's what I want, and that's what I want more of.
I love it. All right. So, as for me, I think one idea that came to mind was back in my year, the best year of all years at the Patriot Lodge. I had a lodge DJ, and the lodge DJ's name was Brother Jason Richards. And I said, hey, we need a musician. We don't have a piano because we're a traveling lodge. Like, let's figure out a way to have some interesting music, some classical music, something like that, just to kind of help move the ritual along and maybe some of the degrees along. But go nuts, right? It was, I gave Jason the what, not the how, and he surprised me. He really did a great job, and
it was pretty good,
dude. I have to admit, this was the greatest thing was when it was I was in the East. I was getting ready. It was like my third meeting. I was just, of course, you're master. Everything's hot and sweaty, and it's just your last minute changes are coming in, and you're really you have a lot of anxiety when you're starting to kick off the meeting. and I hear the lodge DJ, our brother Jason Richards, start playing music, and it's a tune that I'm familiar with, but it's like I've heard the song before, but I've not heard it this way, and it gave me pause. It stopped me in my tracks, and the music was a classical rendition of "Welcome to the Jungle."
Welcome to the Jungle. It was by two cellos, Solikenhauser.
Was it? Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
It
So
was by two cellos.
So I stopped, I laughed, and I was so happy in that moment because it was the creativity I could have never imagined for this lodge. If you hadn't heard the song before, you didn't recognize the tune, it was a great classical rendition, but yet it was that spice that added to the meeting. I'll never forget it, and I want to thank you for that. So that was, one sense of setting the what, not the how, and letting creativity flow by your brothers. And so again, Jason, I don't know if I ever told you that story in detail, but I want to thank you again for doing that for me. So with that, this has been a fantastic episode, and make sure that right now you're on your phone, you're near your device. I know you are, because we can't live without it, especially in COVID. Head on over to tinyurl.com/TMRXmas so that you can sign up by December 11th. If you do not sign up
In
by
all
December
caps.
11th, in all caps, or maybe not. I think Juan might have fixed that for us. Either way, tinyurl.com/TMRXMAS in caps. So that way we can have a great Secret Santa exchange. The more people, the better, right? So we get the whole thing. All the hosts of TMR are involved, so there's a chance that you could get a nice little surprise from us. And so it'll be just a great idea to spread that cheer, especially, daggone it, we need it in 2020. I want to see all of you involved. So not Masons, non-Masons, doesn't matter. Let's just have fun with it. And so for that, I want to say thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.